Who doesn't love a good mystery in their comic books, eh? I mean, after all, pretty much every single comic arc that you can think of is a big mystery just waiting to be solved. Sometimes the answer is with a fist. But there are rare times when our heroes don't actually solve the mystery at large and are left completely perplexed by the events that have unfolded. With this in mind, I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 9 disturbing mysteries that even superheroes couldn't solve. Number 9. Who is Facade? Now, there's a character in the Marvel Universe named Facade, and nobody knows who he is. Whoever they are, though, they're outfitted with the full acclamation combat and defense exoskeleton armor, which gives them the ability to fire off bursts of energy derived from the wearer's bioelectricity, and that they can also fly and have superhuman strength and durability. Now, Facade was introduced in the early 90s with the mystery of who was in the armor, but the storyline hit quite a bit of a snag. You see, Facade is primarily associated with Spider-Man, and the intent was to slowly reveal his identity in a way similar to how Hobgoblin's was revealed. The only problem is that the fans weren't actually interested in Facade. Not only that, but the Clone Saga was ramping up at the time, and there were much more important things for our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man to contend with. Now, that's all well and good for Peter Parker, but what about the readers? This was a long-held mystery just without a payoff. The character was introduced in 1994, and here it is some 26 plus years later, and the world does not know who is in the armor. Now, to be fair, hardly anyone actually cares, but it would be nice to revive this mystery, even if it's just a simple aside, just to satisfy the fans and finally put the mystery to rest. Number 8. What was in Wanda Maximoff's closet? Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, is one of the most powerful mutants in the Marvel Universe, and for good reason. She has the ability to alter reality, though this often comes about when she's grief-stricken or not thinking clearly. When the House of M crossover event concluded, she succumbed to partial amnesia, resulting from her reality warping activities. Now, she's eventually found by Hawkeye, who finds her in a small European village, where she's living in a teeny-tiny apartment. She claimed that she was sharing the apartment with her elderly aunt Agatha, which is somewhat confusing, seeing as Maximoff's former mentor Agatha Harkness was very much deceased at the time. Seeing her news as a bit baffling and disconcerting, Hawkeye attempted to investigate by seeing what was in Agatha's room, and being so small, the room was referred to by fans as her closet. When Hawkeye attempted to open the door, he was unable to do so thanks to Wanda's reality warping powers. There was nothing more that he could do, and the door to the closet remains closed. What or who was inside and why Wanda was prohibiting anyone from entering is a complete mystery, and quite a bizarre one at that. Number 7. What happened at the beginning of time? Now, this one is a bit of a mystery, but it's also a mega taboo. Now, there's one rule for the Green Lantern Corps, and it's one that nobody is allowed to break, and that is that it is forbidden to travel to the beginning of time and witness the creation of the universe. Now, this leaves the obvious question, what happened then? The rule seems to stem from a legend that indicates that nobody can truly witness the beginning of time, but there have been a few close calls, and some superheroes have almost witnessed the very moment of creation. The beginning of time was very nearly witnessed by Batman and John Stewart as the pair pursued Kronos. When they were nearly there, Stewart mentioned how it was forbidden to witness, and all that could be seen was a gigantic hand known as the Hand of Creation. And this was seen first back in comics back in Green Lantern number 40. In that issue, a scientist named Krona witnessed the beginning of time, and the result of his actions was the creation of the antimatter universe. He was the only known being to witness the Hand of Creation at the beginning of time, which leaves the rest of the DC universe in the dark as to what truly happened. Number 6. What is the second holiday's true identity? In the critically acclaimed Batman The Long Halloween, the Dark Knight is on the hunt for a criminal who commits crimes on holidays, who is, of course, named Holiday. In the book, Holiday is a serial killer whose crimes set him apart as particularly dastardly. Nobody could ascertain his identity, not the Riddler nor the police. Of course, by the end of the book, Batman does what nobody else can and deduces that Alberto Falcone, the son of Gotham City's crime boss Carmine, is actually the villain. Now, if Batman figured out who the bad guy was, then you might be wondering, why is he mentioned in an article about mysteries that superheroes couldn't solve? Well, it's actually quite simple. And that was because there was more than one holiday. This was revealed at the end of the book when Two-Face casually mentioned that there were actually 2 people acting as one. When Batman hears this, he dismisses it as a lie or a trick from his nemesis, but he may not be completely convinced that Two-Face was lying to him. In the final scene, Two-Face's wife Gilda is suggested to be the guilty party, but it's never clarified or ever been confirmed. Number 5. What happened to number 5? In the Umbrella Academy, a group of children who were spontaneously born around the world at the same time were collected and assembled into a team of superheroes. Eventually, the children get a bit older and, well, things go to hell, which served to disenfranchise everyone from one another. And one of these kids, who was only ever named number 5, had the ability to travel through time, but he had some difficulty getting the math right. At one point, he simply disappears, and nobody on the team was aware of what actually happened to him, and thus was a mystery that nobody could solve. Granted, it was revealed to the reader that number 5 travelled to the future, where he found a post-apocalyptic landscape where everyone on Earth was dead, and he lived in this world until he reached an old age and was able to work out the math just right so that he could return. But when he travelled to the present, thanks to some time travel shenanigans, he's returned into his adolescent body, but with the mind of an octogenarian. Despite being solved the entire time that he was gone, nobody on the team could crack the mystery of what actually happened to number 5. Number 4. Why can't Doctor Strange heal his hands? We all know that Dr. Stephen Strange wound up becoming the master of the mystic arts at the end of a long hunt for a way to heal his hands. Ultimately, he never did actually heal them, but was able to go on to become the Sorcerer Supreme of Earth, so you know what, it wasn't all that bad. Now, if you're a typical reader, you might be wondering, if he's so powerful and has the ability to travel to other dimensions, project massive amounts of energy, and go toe-to-toe with the bloody Hulk, why can't he repair his hands? He's been shown to heal others, but for some reason, his own injury remains unhealed. Now, to be fair, there have been a few instances throughout his tenure in the Marvel Universe where he has healed his hands. In one, he takes a spell from a demon and heals them so that he can save a life. Of course, it doesn't last, and there was indeed a price to be paid. After all, his infirmity is part of what makes him who he is, but it doesn't stand up to logic that he hasn't figured out a way to permanently heal his hands after all of these years. Number 3. Hooded Justice's real name and identity. The Watchmen comics have been expanded on in recent years with Before Watchmen, Watchmen the HBO series, and of course the Watchmen live action film. But despite these additions, the original Maxi series by Alan Moore remains one of the greatest examples of adult-themed comic book storytelling ever written, and it's full of innuendo and mystery. And there was one mystery in particular that a certain superhero was never able to figure out. The original Night Owl, otherwise known as Hollis Mason, was never able to uncover the true identity of Hooded Justice. This was a bit of a bother to him, as Hooded Justice was the very first person to put on a mask and beat the crap out of criminals. Night Owl didn't know who he was, and neither did any of the other members of the Minutemen, though there was some speculation Mason wrote about in his book. His autobiography, Under the Hood, offered up the possibility that Hooded Justice's real name was that of Rolf Mueller. Now, he could have been right, or he could have been way off, because Moore will never expand on this, so therefore nobody will know the truth. In the television series Watchmen, he's clearly depicted as Will Reeves, a former police officer, but the actual comics identity of the character will likely always remain a mystery. Number 2. What's happened that started the apocalypse in The Walking Dead? Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead is likely one of the most popular independent comic books that Image has ever published. It didn't hurt that AMC launched a massive television franchise based on the books, but needless to say, The Walking Dead has a lot of fans. Now, nobody is saying that there are superheroes in The Walking Dead comics, but it's hard to argue that Rick Grimes isn't a hero. Sure, I mean, he regularly kills people and has done some pretty nasty things to survive, but he would have to continue being a good cop had the apocalypse been put off for a century or two. And speaking of this apocalypse, does anybody know how it started? And that's one of the things that's never revealed in the books, and despite the brief mentions in the television show, it remains a complete mystery. Nobody knows if it's a virus infecting them, or what indeed caused the dead to rise. It's also unclear as to when and where it began. Did it start in one place, or did the dead all over the world spontaneously rise again and begin chomping on the living? It's a mystery that will never be solved, seeing as the comics have concluded without answering this one basic question, and that is, again, how did this apocalypse begin? And number 1, why exactly does kryptonite hurt Kryptonians? Kryptonite was first introduced in 1943 on the Superman radio show for a rather unique reason. The actor who gave voice to the Man of Steel wanted to take a vacation, but the show must go on and all, so they were left with a strange choice. They introduced kryptonite as a way of making Superman sick. For the week-long vacation, another actor moaned and made distressing sounds to pretend to be Superman, who wasn't doing too well. But it was then introduced in 1949 Superman number 61 in a non-green variety, with the standard green rock also appearing in 1951's Action Comics number 161. It's clear that kryptonite hurts Superman, but does anybody actually know why this is the case? Why would a rock from his homeworld cause him immeasurable pain and deprive him of his superpowers? After all, wouldn't a Kryptonian have evolved on Krypton and be immune to all of the planet's ill effects? Now, there have been numerous theories put forth about this over the years, and while they're all pretty good, the comics have not confirmed anything. Kryptonite remains as something more of a reverse Deus Ex Machina, or a MacGuffin meant to drive the story in one way or another, and for whatever reason, it's never been fully explained. And there we go, my friends. I hope that you enjoyed that video. And please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ0. But before I go, I just want to say something to you, the true superhero of this list. Yes, that's right, you watching at home. I hope that you are doing well, both mentally and physically, treating yourself with love and respect, because you goddamn well deserve it, and do not let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise, all right? Now go out there and super smash life right in the testicles. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.